I've tried networking, I've had referrals and interviews. After applying for 500 jobs, I still have zero offers. So, what went wrong? Before I get into more details, here is a quick summary of my background. I had terrible grades when I was little, so I spent my entire childhood and early years of high school working towards getting A's. My hard work paid off, and I cried when I received an acceptance letter from one of my top choices. I set off for California and started pursuing a degree in communications. Marketing was my dream job, and I successfully landed a role in the industry. However, I constantly felt burned out in a stressful environment in Shanghai, so I packed my bags again in the hope of switching to a different industry. I began my master's program at a business school in Canada, but it didn't go as well as I had hoped. It's often the most confident person who gets the job, not the most competent. I don't perform so well in the interviews because, as much as I try, it's still not enough. Knowing how to package your experience and tailor it to the job description is the key to winning over recruiters. Growing up in Shanghai, I was taught to keep a low profile and mind my own business, which makes it harder for me to tell a good story and stand out from the crowd. I recently read this book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts. It talked about cultural differences in how people view introversion. In some Asian communities, we view humility as a virtue, whereas in North America, people are encouraged to be expressive. If you're like me and struggle in interviews, the only thing we can do is to fake it till you make it. Not getting an offer doesn't mean you're not good enough. There are many factors that play in this process. Telling you this is not me talking down to myself, it's actually the opposite. I actually see myself improving as I get more interviews. There were times that I had mental breakdowns because I attached my self-worth to having a job. Not having one makes me question myself. That's not a healthy mindset to have. What changed for me was realizing that no one's going to help me and I should be the biggest supporter in order for this to work. No matter how many rejection emails I received and how many negative voices I heard, I shouldn't beat myself up for all the hard work I put in. I shouldn't doubt myself. I tried everything to stay positive. I watched YouTube to learn new skills, tried positive affirmations, and reconnected with nature. This is not my first time being unemployed. I've learned to turn challenges into opportunities. This can be a time for you to rediscover yourself. I'm not the type of person who always know what I want. When I was at a business school, I basically followed what everyone else was doing. I reached out on LinkedIn to ask for coffee chats, and I was fortunate enough to get referrals. From what I've seen, some of my classmates received top offers from networking. But something I didn't realize was that it might work very well for some people because they're good at socializing and selling themselves. For me, I spent so much time researching and preparing for questions. Coffee chats consumed so much of my energy and time that I could have used it on applying jobs and practicing interviews. I also find it very awkward because at the end of the day, the purpose of it is to land on a job. I wanted the other person to like me so badly that I may give off vibes that are not genuine enough. Looking back, I wish I had a strategy instead of going in blindly and trying everything. I feel like I wasted so much of my time on useless networking events and workshops. At one point, I was even preparing for consulting cases that I never ended up using the knowledge. Is it bad to not have a dream job? I thought I would be the girl in Devil Wears Prada, but the truth is, working for brands is not all glitter and gold. I felt stuck working at a 9 to 5, but I simply didn't have a choice. I think it's also the reason why I struggle in interviews because I didn't show enough interest in the company or the job. I have many passions, but none of them make enough money for me to support myself. I don't think you have to love what you're doing, but knowing your strength and picking a job that aligns with them can save you a lot of troubles. All of the interviews that I had so far were all related to my past experience. So it's really hard to switch to a different industry unless you have the right skills or you have an internship. I had an interview when the recruiter turned off her camera halfway through without an explanation. I was scheduled for an interview right after a recruiter reached out, even though I clearly indicated that I wasn't free at the time. I know I shouldn't be picky, especially in this job market, but I once accepted an offer when I didn't feel respected in the interview, and that continued after I started working for that company. What I'm trying to say is that don't settle for less. I know it's really hard to find a job right now, but you deserve to work for a company that treats you well. Since I started living alone in my first year of college, I've stopped showing vulnerability to others because I only trusted myself to handle everything. But it's okay to ask for help sometimes. There are people out there that are willing to help you. It doesn't hurt to ask. It's also okay to talk about hardships you've been through. The reason why I decided to share my experience on the internet is because, first, I can get over it, and second, if any of you watching that are going through the same thing, hopefully I brought you some comfort because you're not alone. Maybe you also get to learn from my mistakes. Being unemployed for a year seems like the end of the world, but it's only the end if you let it be.